What is up? My name is CJ Finley, and I just wanted to say thank you for tuning into my channel. If this is your first time here, we discuss all the tips and tricks to help you live a healthier, happier lifestyle and thrive on life. In today's discussion, we will be talking about blood work and how blood work and specific blood tests have changed my life for the better. And I'm hoping to give you information that could help you make some positive changes in your life as well. Let's get right into it. So why did I start getting blood work in the first place? My entire life, I've suffered from digestive issues. And once I became an adult, I started to spend money on finding different doctors and services that could potentially help with that pain. Unfortunately, I didn't find any solutions. And after a while, I almost actually gave up until I started doing some more research online that started talking about different blood tests that you could take to see what you're deficient in. So I'm extremely nerdy when it comes to nutrition and what I'm putting into my body, meaning I like to know what type of ingredients I'm eating at all times. That has always been something I've looked into over the past decade. The problem I was having was I didn't understand how different foods were actually affecting my body internally. So was I actually absorbing the different nutrients from the different foods that I was eating? I had no clue. So that's where the first thing that I started looking into was nutrient testing, specifically the SpectraCell micronutrient test. And the reason that I was looking into that was because I wanted to know what types of vitamins and minerals was I absorbing just from the food that I was eating. At the time, this was like early 2020, I wasn't taking that many supplements or anything that specifically was tailored towards helping my body be optimal. And that's when I decided, you know what, I'm gonna invest in some blood work and see what are the different things that I am deficient in. Unfortunately, I found out rather quickly that I was deficient in a couple areas that were having a major impact on everything else. So the first tests that I took were a standard liver panel, heart panel, and then the SpectraCell micronutrient test. My heart and cholesterol, all that was good to go, but my liver and my micronutrient test showed signs that I needed to make some very drastic changes, specifically my liver. Unfortunately, my ALT and AST came back extremely high, and that forced me to start reflecting and understanding more about why was that score a little bit off and looking at the habits that I had within my life to cause that score, specifically drinking alcohol. So myself having an autoimmune disease, I thought that just drinking a couple drinks a week wouldn't have that big of an impact, but unfortunately that liver test proved the opposite. So one of the things I first started doing was just cutting out liquor and alcohol in general, and that showed a massive improvement right away. The second thing was the micronutrient test by SpectraCell, and what that showed is a couple vitamin deficiencies, but the most important one that I noticed was the glutathione process was low, and my overall immune function was low. So low that somebody that's like 70, 80, 90 probably has a higher immune function than I do if they are healthy. And we tested this with other diabetics, pre-diabetics, and people that had other diseases or illnesses, and they actually came back with a higher immune function than even myself. So what I started to look into was how do I improve my glutathione and antioxidant process? And the things that I found were vitamin injections, so IVs at the MSW lounge, glutamine, which I can ingest just by pouring into my water, and then a heavy focus on sleep and recovery to allow my hormones to readjust and adapt to the new lifestyle that I was leading, and no alcohol and more supplementation across my deficiencies, aka I was taking daily vitamins now to make sure that anything I was deficient in, I was supplementing for. Now the thing is, I had specific issues that I was suffering from that caused me to start looking into blood work and other testing to see what was wrong with me and how I could fix it. You might be happy and healthy right now, but the important thing about blood work is you want to get tests done even prior to leading up to whatever you could potentially suffer from in the future. Because unfortunately, when you do get these blood tests, they have a range. And every person is different. You're an individual. So over every year, you want to see how the different tests are adapting and adjusting based on the different lifestyle habits that you live yourself. You don't want to be held to the range of other people. So a good instance is if I were to take any type of liver, heart, nutrient test, I can see year over year the different changes in that. And if certain metrics are changing and going either up or down in the wrong direction, year over year, I can then start adjusting my habits to make sure that it doesn't get to the point where I develop a chronic disease, illness, inflammation, and potentially death. You want to prevent that. And one of the best preventative measures we have currently is to take your own data year over year and start building a database on what that data is. This will allow you, again, just like me, to cut out the alcohol, to start making different lifestyle habit changes to help yourself. Nobody else can do that for you. Somebody else's blood work is going to look completely different than yours, and the ranges that you're going to see, you don't really want to listen to them. You want to get your specific ranges year over year so that you can start making adjustments. A big question is, what blood work should you go and get? And that's something I would highly recommend talking to a professional about. I am not a doctor. I'm not a practicing physician, so I can only speak to myself. And for myself, what I looked at was, what are the major organs that I want to look into in the beginning? So that was liver, heart, and then my overall nutrient profile, which is where SpectraCell came in. Some other tests that I've done in the past are hair, blood, and urine samples for heavy metals. There's a lot of metal in our water and foods that we don't know about, so I wanted to make sure that I'm good to go when it comes to heavy metal and that I don't have heavy metal toxicity. Other than that, hormonal panels to get your testosterone and estrogen, and then adiponectin as well, and making sure that those are all in check. So you went and you got your blood work, you talked to your doctor. Now what? A lot of people struggle with this part. It's one thing to get your data, and it's another thing to understand your data, but then what are the actions you need to be taking after you first get the blood work done, second, understand what it even means. The third and final step is to take action on that understanding. This is where accountability, discipline, and persistence are always going to be the best ingredients for this. So if you need to hire a coach, I highly recommend doing that. If you need to get a journal, you can do that. Something I have done is to reinvest money into blood tests every 6 months, as well as invest money into weekly habits such as IVs and supplementation to make sure that I am optimizing my health. Typically, when people spend money, they show up each and every day in a more accountable way and end up being more disciplined in the long run because nobody wants to lose a dollar. That's what I would recommend. It looks a million different ways, but once you start holding yourself accountable to the changes that you need to make, you're going to see progress. And once you start seeing that progress, human beings, we tend to get obsessed with that progress. What's wrong with being obsessed with having the best health that you could potentially have? Again, to recap everything, I highly recommend that in 2022, you go and get some general blood panels done. You start researching what those specific metrics are, and then you make sure that you hold this data in a safe place so that next year or even 6 months from now when you go get blood work again, you're going to be able to find previous tests and previous metrics so that you can compare year over year what are the changes that are happening in your specific body, and if you need to make any specific lifestyle and habit changes to positively impact what those blood tests are telling you. I cannot emphasize this enough. Do not wait until it's too late. Someone like me, I'm literally trying to reverse decades worth of bad habits that I didn't even really understand I was making. It was nobody's fault. That is one thing that I've done a great job of recently, is just letting go and forgiving everything that has happened in my past. Everything happens for a reason. It was no one's fault, no doctor's fault. My parents had no idea. And now that I have this information, I can control my future by starting to reverse the bad habits that I picked up that were having a negative impact on me. You can do the very same thing, and I hope that you go and you take action after watching this video. Blood work is the way of the future, and I know that it can help you live a healthier and happier lifestyle and ultimately thrive on life.